From June the 15th, face coverings will be made compulsory for anyone using public transport in England. Non-compliance means you won't be allowed to travel and you could be fined. The government says people should try to start wearing them now. Here's our transport correspondent, Tom Burridge.
Please remember to use a face covering while travelling on TfL services.
It's advice now, it will be an order soon. Covering your face is to become compulsory on public transport in England. The move popular for those out and about in Warrington this afternoon.
You don't want to catch anything or be ill. You don't want anyone in your family to get anything. So I think it'll be a great idea.
You're in a closed space on a bus or on a train or anywhere else like that. So I think, yeah, it probably should be compulsory.
At certain times in certain places during the pandemic, social distancing hasn't been easy. Although, on the whole, our public transport system has been very quiet. Major stations still almost deserted. But they expect more people to be travelling to school or to work in the coming weeks. And so, as it gets busier, you'll have to cover up when you board a service. The new measure will be enforced from June the 15th. Is it possible that people will be fined if they do not cover their face on public transport?
It's a condition of travel, so you cannot travel unless you're wearing the face covering, and we'll have people there to remind you. There'll be posters there to remind you. It will be quite a visual thing that Peter is working on. There will also be other powers, so ultimately it could lead to fines. I very much hope we won't be in that situation.
But train companies say the detail over how it will be policed is still being worked out.
Wearing a face covering in either a train or a station should give customers that confidence that they can make that journey safely. But obviously this policy has just been announced and we have to work with government to ensure that it is implemented properly.
Face coverings are recommended on public transport in Scotland and Northern Ireland. The Scottish Government is thinking about making them compulsory. Wales's Chief Medical Officer has called it a matter of personal choice.
Use a tissue if you need to cough or sneeze.
Transport bosses are nervous about how to manage larger numbers when more people move about. So the message is, if you have to travel, please use any type of face covering. Tom Burridge, BBC News.
Well, dozens of countries already have rules in place on the wearing of face masks and coverings in public places. Our science editor David Shukman explains the thinking behind the new guidance for England.
Inside a train, we can't see for real how the coronavirus could be spread. So this animation simulates what might happen. How someone who's infected, but maybe doesn't realise, can pass it on just by talking to the passenger sitting close to them. It's in confined, crowded situations like this that face coverings could make a difference. Scientists have studied how a cough travels through the air and could carry the virus with it, and how wearing some kind of mask can reduce that flow. The science is clear that being out of doors is safest of all because of all the fresh air and how it's easy to keep 2 meters apart. But indoors, of course, you can't do that, especially on a train or a bus. In which case, if everyone wears some kind of mask, even something that's homemade, that'll reduce the chances of them passing the virus to you and of you passing it to others. For several weeks now, masks have been mandatory on the Paris metro. More and more governments have looked at the evidence and they've decided that although face coverings are no guarantee against infection, they can help to reduce it. Many scientists say the benefits are clear.
If you put your hand in front of your face and cough, you can feel that it gets wet. You can feel that something in front of your face will stop those droplets. But I think the other thing that has changed is what we call natural experiments. Country after country that has introduced face coverings has seen a subsequent decline in the transmission of this terrible virus.
On face masks, we are guided by the science, and the government position hasn't changed.
So we are now seeing a big change. For months, the UK government had been against the public wearing any kind of mask.
Not least because the most important thing people can do is the social distancing, as opposed to the weak science on face masks.
But the contrast with countries like Germany became more striking. For some time there, on public transport, masks have had to be worn. The big worry here was that medical staff would lose out. That's why homemade face coverings are suggested, to help the public without harming the hospitals. David Shukman, BBC News.
Our chief political correspondent, Vicki Young, is at Westminster. Vicki, some have wanted compulsory face coverings for many weeks now. Why has the government relented now?
Yeah, that's right. The Labour Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, first started calling for this almost 2 months ago. But a bit like the criticism yesterday about the quarantine measures, the government seemingly against it, but gradually moving to a different position. Lots of people saying, well, for goodness sake, what took them so long? I think at this point, after some criticism of their handling of the coronavirus outbreak, they do want to be seen to be doing everything they can to stop reinfection rates. Even as they admit on this, it will only have maybe a small impact. The timing is designed to coincide with more shops in England starting to open, people wanting to go to those shops and get back to work. But I think it is also too about giving anxious people some confidence that it is safe to get back on the buses and the trains. So I think to a large extent the science hasn't changed, but maybe the politics has.
OK, Vicki, thank you. Vicki Young there at Westminster.